Radio. I'm Annette McCoy. With me is Janet Hickox, and this is our first live show for 2021. And I'm very, very excited. It's all happening.
It's
Janet,
happening.
thank you for joining me. May I say just a couple of things before we get started?
Certainly.
Everybody, if you are watching this anywhere but via Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, why not hop over there, because then you can join in the discussion and you can possibly have even a reading. You never know what's going to happen in these shows.
I'm ready.
Good. And then also, I'd like to remind you that anything that is said here is what Janet and I offer, and none of what we say should take the place of either your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. So, what we share sits well for us. It might or might not sit well with you, but that's what, for me, learning is all about. And that's why I love sharing on here. And I love people sharing with us, like Gabby Forrester. And I dare say Angel Heart Radio might happen to be Annette, or maybe it's Carol Ann. And those two lovely ladies come back later on. Or was it you, Janet?
It was me.
Ah!
Somehow it named me Angel Heart Radio instead of Living Astrology. I was like, okay, I'll be Angel Heart Radio for today.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are, a great new year. And I have to say, personally, it has started so well for me. I'm in my new abode, as you can see, changed background, and I'm trusting that I can experiment in the next few weeks. And Julie Kiss, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Julie.
So, Janet, 2021, people have been waiting with bated breath, I think. We were all very pleased to see the back of 2020.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Can we breathe a sigh of relief, or...
Well, you've heard that saying, Annette, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Well,
Yes.
that is a little bit like this year so far, but it has a different quality to it. And I started out my astrology for 2021 workshop with a quote that I found, and this was by Joan Rivers, and it says, "Listen, I wish I could tell you it gets better, but it doesn't get better. You get better." And to me, that totally summed up 2021, as in we've come through the heat of a lot of different things over the last year, even the last couple of years while Saturn was transiting through Capricorn. We've seen a lot of destruction, a lot of dismantling, a lot of change that wasn't necessarily comfortable. A lot of things have been exposed that weren't necessarily things that we knew about. But it kind of, it's put us in a position of noticing where all the weaknesses are in our society, in our culture, and even in our personal lives, because all of those things were happening to us on the personal level as well. Now, as we move into 2021, then the emphasis shifts, because the powerful planets, Jupiter and Saturn, that were causing a bit of that dismantling in Capricorn for 2020 have now moved into Aquarius, a whole new sign, a whole new feeling, and literally the potential and the possibilities that are on the horizon for us are taking us into a whole 800-year cycle. An 800-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn coming together in air, as opposed to Earth, which they have been in for the last 200 years at least. So, I mean, there's a lot of cycles. Actually, there's the 200 years, there's an 800 year, but Jupiter and Saturn have a 20-year cycle. Every 20 years, they come together at together in some sign. The last 200 years or so have been in Earth. And so we've been dealing with issues around survival and how we jockey our resources around, and how we greed was the big thing that was developing, right? This idea of greed and how can we share of our resources. Now that we've moved into an air sign, now it's about innovation. It's about idea sharing. It's about curiosity that says, I wonder if we did this, would it change the dynamic on the planet? And,
Mhm.
air signs, as opposed to earth signs, are really encouraging us to think outside of the box, to look for new solutions rather than attempting to keep doing things in the dogged old way that we've been trying to do them, and to kind of release ourselves to be more innovative, more creative, more solutions oriented. But I think probably the best news of all is to be more human, right? To be more human. Humanity is ruled by Aquarius. So it is the love of our fellow humans, the caring and nurturing of our fellow humans that becomes the drumbeat as we move further and further along. Now, some people are still stuck in that old Capricorn energy, and it's going to be that old m- energy that's going to be the one that wants to strike back. It's the energy that wants to hold us back or to take us backwards in time.
Mm.
Um, Interesting because Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. And in Capricorn, he rules the past and the traditional way of doing things. But in Aquarius, he rules the more modern, the more future oriented energy. So I really feel like we've turned our heads from looking backward to really saying, okay, we have to release that and we have to look forward now. And from that position, what can I create? Right? What's new? What's exciting? What's a new solution to old problems? So, in a very real way, it isn't that the energy has shifted or that things are going to be different. It's that we as humans are looking at things in a different way.
And certainly, Janet, I figure that last year gave us that opportunity
Hmm.
to look at our lives. And I love the idea that we're being encouraged to be more humane to ourselves and to other people and
Yeah,
to the environment, to everything that's living on this planet.
right. I- Aquarius is really about humans. It's a sign of humanity, a humanitarianism. It's about how we care for our weakest links. It's about how we care for our environment, our Mother Earth. It's about how we care for our tribes, our communities, our governments, our nations, our people on the planet, our global community. And it is also a sign of freedom. And right away, then you almost get a sense of what some of the dynamics might be over the course of the next 200 years, because that's what we're looking at now. Kind of funny, like told people that I was doing readings for, get your 200-year plan. If
Mm,
you because this is a 200-year cycle. And so goals and ambitions and things that we set now have an effect for 200 years into the future. So we better be pretty prepared to take up the cause of some very big things, because not to do it means that we're going to be saddled with the problem and trying to throw all kinds of solutions out there based on our past experiences, but none of them are going to work, right? Because the dynamic has changed, the energy potential has changed. So it really is a time for us to get with a new program. But the minute that we start talking about how to take care of one another, then it pits us against this concept of freedom, right? My freedom to choose, my sovereignty, my, getting to be who I want to be versus the group identity, which is what Aquarius is all about. So it's an interesting dilemma. Just sitting opposite from Aquarius is Leo. Leo rules the individual and the
mm,
individualized expression, the freedom to be me. But it's also polarized against the energy of Aquarius says we're free to be we, right? So we have to fit the I and the I am into the we are. And how do we do that? Right? That's going to be the challenges as we go forward. We see
mm.
it clearly I mean, you could just use masking, for coronavirus as one of the issues that is demonstrating this, because I was just having a talk at lunch about the same thing about, I'm going out into public and I'm free to do what I want to do because I'm a sovereign being. But is that really true when what I'm doing impacts other people
Mm,
that are out in the world? Or we were sitting at a restaurant, and that's going to be a dilemma, right? That's a dilemma that we're going to have as people as we start to move forward. Because every time we take a move to do something for the group or for a group of people, then there are going to be those other people on the other end trying to keep it balanced with freedom to be me, right? Freedom to be the individual. So that's a longer term struggle. It is one that characterizes the whole of the Aquarian age, that we could say is pretty much, in action. We see it right now in very big ways, and that's going to get even bigger. If you looked at a chart right now, what you would see in everybody's chart, so I don't care who you are or where you live, what color your skin is, you
ah,
have a load of planets right now sitting in Aquarius in your astrology chart. Right now we have Jupiter and Saturn there, we have Pallas Athena there, we have Mercury there, and the sun is there. And in just a few more days, next Monday, we'll have Venus joining the gang. And that will last throughout pretty much the month of February, where we're getting in almost every area that you can think of, we're getting a dose of this new Aquarian energy. And then in just a few
mm,
years from now, Pluto, who's been in Capricorn since 2008, will move into Aquarius. So we better get used to this energy. We better start really looking at, well, how do we make the world better by coming together instead of tearing each other apart? Right? That's going to
sure.
be the big news item. So in most people's charts, that Aquarius energy is playing out in a certain area of your life. And
Right.
it might be in the health sector, it might be in the career sector, it might be a lot of people that I did readings for this last month were being affected in their first house, which is the house of their personality or who they are essentially as people. And so there's a lot of personal changes going on for people in the midst of this, but it can be literally in any area of your life based on where all that Aquarian energy is in your chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, that's not the only problem, right? That's not the only thing. And in a real way, to me, it's been really good, right? It's been a really good thing. It is in my work house, how I work, what I work at doing, and I've gotten some clarity around what that work should look like, to be in alignment with who I am. So it can be really good. But at least initially, from January 1st, well, actually from winter solstice back on the 21st of December, all the
Mm,
way through the end of February, and even a little bit into the month of March, we have the planets Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius in a challenging relationship to Uranus that is sitting in Taurus. And the quality of that kind of energy is really, it's like, rubbing sticks together to get sparks, to start a fire, because there's a lot of energy that goes into what's happening, and we don't always know where those sparks are going to go, right? Or how long is it going to take us to keep rubbing these sticks together to make things happen? So there's some frustration out there, as well as people feeling like giving up, or people, so some people like you and me were feeling really good about it. Others are like, oh my God, here we go. It's not so fun and happy for them. But I think all of that begins to shift as we start moving through February and get into the spring and early summer of this year. In fact, I even expect the coronavirus to respond to that same kind of energy, where it's finally getting tired of playing with humans and goes on its merry way somewhere, not here. So
right.
so good things, right? Good things, but some, at least initially here, maybe some, trying to get things going and moving in a new direction.
Well, Gabby is saying, "Wow, I'm getting it in multiple areas." That was when you first started talking, I think, about the challenges. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what she said. Hello, Elisa, lovely that you've joined us. And Helen Harris, thank you very, very
Hi,
much.
Helen. I love Helen.
Yes, she's managed to make it live. Well, this is our first live, and Julie saying big changes in capital letters. So
Yeah.
I think
And
it comes back to us, doesn't it, Janet? How are we going to respond, or how do we respond to what's happening for us in this moment?
yeah, most definitely. And there's big challenges in the emotional field, right? That we as humans live in. In human design, what we see is some people, about 50% of the population has a defined emotional center. They're broadcasting emotion. Then the other 50% or so are empathics. They're picking up emotional energy, amplifying it, and then rebroadcasting it. So what we are really learning about here then is how to respond instead of reacting to the emotional
Mm-hmm.
triggers that we are experiencing. So it can be a comment, it can be, I mean, this country, crazy things have happened over the past month, right? And that is reactionary energy, right? Reactionary energy. Instead of, I bet you that 99% of those people that kind of crowded the Capitol, if they'd taken a moment to breathe, if they'd really just thought to themselves before they did anything, is this the correct thing for me to do? Is this,
Mm.
in the best interest of the planet? Is this in the best interest of the country, et cetera, et cetera? That about half of them or more would have probably decided not to do what they did. And that's because there's such a, there's no, there's no, there's some people, there's not a lot of people out there talking about emotional intelligence, right? We talk about intelligence
Mm.
from the mind. We talk about, integrity, that we usually mean as a physical thing, that everything's in alignment in the physical, but we don't often talk about emotions and how it is that emotions are what rules the planet, basically. And if someone's having a bad day and they lash out, the ramifications are huge, right? It
Mm.
just kind of snowballs. Where if that person who's experiencing a bad day takes that emotion and says, okay, maybe I need to go take a walk, or I need to go take a shower, I need to go meditate or do something before I react badly, then the
Mhm.
energy on the planet changes in response as opposed to reaction. So,
Sure.
but those are big lessons. And literally, we had that chat with Anea and Carol Ann, for those few weeks talking about the solar plexus mutation that's occurring, that's not
Mhm.
finished until 2027. So we still are in the throes of learning what it means to be emotionally intelligent.
Mm.
So, and how to, it's not that we don't want to be emotional. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's that, what's the appropriate response? Well, maybe it's not, reaching out and clocking someone because, you feel like you can, or you're mad, or you don't like what they said or what they did. It might be better to breathe first and then choose what to do, because that's where your real
Mm.
freedom is in the choice. So we have a lot to learn, and I'm
We-
sure there'll be a lot of things to test us along the way to make sure we learn that lesson.
Yes, that breath is so important. And I don't know about you, Janet. I had a chat with a girlfriend this morning. We were going to do something on Sunday, and it wasn't sitting well with me. This friend is going with another friend, and the preparations that I had tried to make weren't aligning. And it was like, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. And it felt really good when I realized that, well, no, that's not what I'm meant to be doing on Sunday. I'm meant to be doing something else. And I've learnt to trust how I'm feeling. And it's either a definite yes, even with I'm wanting to recover some chairs. And yesterday, there were so many samples to choose from. However, I thought, just sit with it. How do I feel? And
Good one. Good one.
it's a really good way to go, rather than getting all uptight. Oh, I've got to make a decision. Well, just allow that decision to appear.
Yep. And if you have emotional definition in your human design, meaning it's colored in your human design chart, then the questions that you ask yourself should be easily answered with a yes or a no. And that means that you're asking yourself, does this make me happy? Does this
Mhm.
feel good? Is this correct for me? Is this true for me? Is this the direction I want to go? And you're waiting, just for that moment for your emotions to come on board. But with emotional energy, it tends to flow in waves. So it's not like an emotion sticks in the moment. It flows up into highs and it flows down into the lows, just like the waves on the ocean, right? They crest and then they break and then there's the low. And that's why we always say with emotional energy, it's not spontaneous. It comes to us with clarity over time, which means that even giving yourself the moment to breathe or to walk away, go walk around the block, then come back and see how you feel about what you need to do or not do. It gives you the time to actually be in response then rather than be in reaction, which saves
Mm.
everybody a whole lot of problems in terms of anger and frustration or upset, right? I think, we're far more comfortable thinking about it with joy, and we want to just reach out and hug somebody or love on somebody. But unfortunately, it's been the anger and the frustration and the pent up emotions that have been breaking through the surface in reactionary ways. So we have to
Mhm.
learn how to deal with that because they're valid emotions. It's not that anger's bad or frustration is wrong. It's that we just use it incorrectly. Instead of
Ah,
using it as a way to understand our psyche or what's going on with us or, my personal feelings, what's triggered me or what's angered me, it gets used as a weapon.
yes.
Yeah,
I like Gabby's comment. Choice is our superpower.
it
We
is
have a
indeed.
choice how we are going to allow ourselves to feel about things. Yeah, to
Absolutely.
realize that, yes, we do have control over our feelings. And Belinda Brown, welcome.
Hello,
Love
Belinda.
the new 2021 hairdo. What a great idea.
Hey,
Love
if
it.
you if you're someone who has Aquarius energy and it's on your first house, then it's what you look like, it's what you wear, it's how you dress up your hair, it's your viewpoint, it's your personality. It's everything personal. It's like going through a personal revolution, right? So for those people who have that, Aquarius on their rising sign or in their first house, they're going through a personal thing, a personal
Right.
change, right? So
And Londa's joined us.
hi,
Hello.
Londa. Landa. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of um, power in some of these transits that we're experiencing right now because first of all, Uranus in Taurus has been changing our financial markets. It's been changing our
Mhm.
financial outlook. And I was thinking about this the other day because remember back, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years this May, when Uranus first moved into the sign of Taurus, and we were all anticipating some kind of market crash because Taurus rules the financial markets and the stock market and mortgages and all of the big financial stuff. And it didn't happen. And we're like, wow, why not? Uranus usually is like, activating all kinds of change, but it's been more subtle than that because if I look back now over the last 2 years, I can certainly see how the financial market is in change and likely being a little more deliberate in its crash than what we originally anticipated, which was an all-out crash market instead of stock market crash market. So we are, I think, being graced a bit here by that because it gives us opportunities as people to change our own prosperity mindedness and our own ideas or ideals about what is resourceful, right? Resourceful and sustainable. Is it, sustainable to keep going the way things have been going and to let people do the things that they've been doing in banking and markets and mortgages and all kinds of things like that, borrowing money against our future when we have no idea what that's going to bring. And so at some point here, I would bet that we're looking at a complete changeover in our financial system. I've been watching Bitcoin and all of the
Mm.
cryptocurrencies because I feel like that's where it's going. I feel like
Sure.
that at some point is going to be a huge thing. And when you start to see banks, major corporations really buying into this idea of cryptocurrencies, you know it's like the handwriting's on the wall. It's just a matter of
Right.
time. So to me, I think there's bigger changes going on there, and it is giving us as individuals the time to get on board with another huge key word for 2021, which is faith, right? Faith in a higher power, in source, whatever you want to call it. It's the
Mhm.
faith that everything is working out exactly as it should be in any given moment with any given thing that's happening in the world or in your backyard, in your house, that everything is right and perfect and is working to our advantage to help us grow and evolve consciousness on the planet. When you have that kind of faith, then things don't rock your world in the same way,
Mm.
right? It just doesn't have that
True.
ability to rock your world and take you out when you have faith. I wonder what this is leading us to. I wonder what good will come out of this big change, because everything is moving us in a direction of having more faith, being more resourceful, sustainable, and what more is possible. Possibilities was my word for 2021. Possibilities, what more is possible, because that's what I'm looking for. What else can I do? How else can I
Absolutely.
serve? How else can I show up?
Mm.
It's kind of
Fantastic.
exciting to look at the world that way, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Now, Julie Kiss is saying, trust all is well. I totally agree. And Belinda is going through beautiful change and welcoming it with open arms and an open heart.
Mm,
Yay!
yep, open arms, open heart, open mind, all the things that we must have now. Getting ourselves out of that old paradigm of ugliness, division, all of that, letting
Mm,
it go. It doesn't serve us. If it doesn't serve us, then why are we playing with it?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
And we feel lighter too, don't we?
mm,
Again, it goes back to choice. I wake up of a morning, oh, I'm grateful that I've woken up. How do I view the day? And there's something about the sun too, Janet. If the sun's shining,
mm.
it lifts our spirits.
Makes it
Although
easier to
some,
get out of bed, I'll tell you that much. Oh, we don't see much sun this time of the year, so it's always dark when I get up. I'm dark early in the afternoon. It seems like right now it's already, getting to be that dark time, and you're like, oh, I just want the day to be a little longer.
indeed,
Yeah.
Julie says she's feeling so light,
Mm,
and it's great when we can tune into ourselves. I love what you're saying about faith. For me, trust is really similar, isn't it?
yeah.
To trust, and even I love Desiderata, and when it's saying that even though we might be going through chaos, uh, all is well,
Yeah.
as Julie was saying. It's
Yeah.
to trust in the process.
Yes, exactly. Now, I bet some people are wondering, like, where am I getting these themes from? Like, how do I know these are going to be the themes? And I'm getting the themes because we've just gone through the Human Design New Year, which occurred on January 22nd. So last Thursday or Friday,
Hmm.
Saturday for you guys in Australia. And what I do the same thing with an astrology chart. I'm looking at where are the planets now, and given a whole 12-month period of time, how far will they get? And along the way, who are they going to ruffle feathers with, and who are they going to cozy up to? And so, the idea of the themes comes from the movement of the planets and looking at them from the macro, not just the micro. And in
Hmm.
human design, I can do the same thing, right? I can take those same planets and look at them from through the lens of where were they on the day that we came to the new day or the new
Hmm.
year, and then how far are they going to make it through the mandala of all of the gates? And in that case, then I can get the themes. Well, the themes are primarily if you look at the themes, they really come from the outer planets. So from Jupiter and Saturn, where we get our societal pressures and our societal norms and culture, and how we're going to, as a people, show up in the world, to the much further outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, that show us more about the collective, like collective consciousness. So all of the people on the planet, not just the society that we are living in or a part of. So we get the two of those themes coming together, and that's how we can tell, like, where are things headed. And in human design, it's by what gate they happen to be sitting in at the time of the new year. Well, the sun and the earth in human design are always going to be at the same gates, 41 and 30, or 41 and 31, at the new year, because that's what signals the new year, right? That when the sun comes to the gate 41, that's when the new year begins. So that's always happening somewhere January 21st to 23rd, somewhere in there. And that's because the gate 41 is a gate of imagination, right? The sun is in a very powerful place, lighting up our imagination. That is what more is possible. What can we create? What can we create if we get out of our way, right? If we allowed our minds to expand, but holding it lightly so that we're not like pigeonholing the universe and this is how it has to be done and when we expect it by. And if it's not, then, well, then there's no God, there's no source, there's no reason to be living on the planet. Some people go to that extent, but instead that we allow this imagination to sort of build. Well, this year, on that day, and the days leading up to the Human Design New Year, it wasn't only the sun that was sitting at the gate 41 of imagination. It was Saturn, our duty and responsibility, and Jupiter, growth and expansion. So we had three very powerful planets that were lined up. And as soon as the new year started, Jupiter moved off to a different gate. So now we're left with the sun, the whole force of our persona and our humanness, and Saturn, our responsibility, our duty, the direction we must go in for growth. And those two are left at the gate 41 of imagination that first week of the new year. With the Earth, interesting, we had just had the presidential inauguration here on the 20th, and then the Earth moves into the gate 31 of leadership. So it shows us that right around this January 20th to 22nd-ish, we undergo a leadership change. So a leadership, at least, from looking here at the USA, but it puts the spotlight on how do we want our leaders to be? What constitutes leadership? What does it mean to be a leader? Right? Is it me doing a power grab and taking all the power I can get, and usurping power in the worst of ways, a power struggling with others over this concept of power? Or is it something like it should be, which is more synarchy like? Synarchy means we come together and we share leadership, and we respect one another and one another's opinions or one another's ideas, and we work together to create a path forward. And leadership comes then as an invitation to step up to the plate, right? So we look to our leaders at this particular time to see to sort of, even if it's unconscious, to sort of model ourselves around what we're seeing in the leadership realm. So that's always interesting to look at. And if you really think about, so one of the big themes is about nurturing. Mars and Uranus were both sitting at the gate 27, which is a gate about how we feed and take care of, educate, clothe, house the humans, right? How do we take care of one another? And it's very tribal energy. So that's a circuitry that is all about love and how we love one another enough to take care of one another. So right there, Neptune or Uranus and Mars bringing us the action necessary to restore respect for life, to restore respect for loving one another and how we take care of one another. So that's a theme that we're going to look at all through 2021, especially because the outer planets move much slower. Jupiter is going to move through 5 gates through the whole of the year, compared to uh, Mercury and the Sun and Earth that are going to move through 64 of them. So when you look at those outer planets, they really hold more weight in what they bring us to. And
Right.
Saturn's only moving through 3 throughout the whole of 2021. Uranus is going to end up at 2 different gates, Neptune and Pluto at the same gates that we started the year at. Pluto is at the gate of wonder, right? In its lowest form, in the shadow, Pluto will bring us more psychosis. It brought us a lot of psychosis in 2020, 2019, a good chunk of 2019 even, sort of setting the stage for where we ended up in 2020. And now the opportunity is for us to let go of that shadow of psychosis and express wonder and awe at how things, and marvel at how things are moving, and what more can we ask for? What more do we want? How do we want to show up in the world as an individual, but as a people, as a human? How do you want to show up in this world? Neptune is at a very interesting gate. Neptune is all about our spiritual self and our spiritual path, who we are as spiritual beings. And it's at the gate of surrender. Surrender, right? We have to let go and let God, if you will. And a lot of that has to do with faith. And both Jupiter and Saturn this year are going to transit through the gate of faith in our human design. So there we have another indication of a theme that is moving through the dynamic, as well as things like resourcefulness and sustainability. So we get that from our human design words and gates, and we get it from the themes from the planets as they transit through the astrology against the backdrop of the stars. Yeah. So it's not like I just pulled those words out of my, out of my head or out of my mouth. There's a reason for those particular things being important for the year.
Sure. Just going back to the sun for a moment, because I know it does impact. Julie was saying that they in upstate New York, they didn't see the sun for 35 days. I mean, that's over a month. And I know that there are countries and areas in this world where it's dark for days on end. And it does impact. We know that the sun's there. The thing is, if we don't see it, it can impact on how we're feeling.
Oh, yeah. If we don't see the sun, does it exist? I mean, after a while, you're like, I'm sure we go more than 35 days in a row here at times not seeing the sun. Like it seemed like from, October all the way through January, we didn't see the damn sun. It was like missing in action. And then suddenly it comes out and everybody's like outside, like we're sun worshipers. It gives you an appreciation for the sun.
Yes.
And for the light and life that it brings us. But we also are very adaptable, right? So as people, we're very adaptable to the conditions that we live in. But the sun plays a major role in how we feel and how we greet the world, right? In our attitude and the way that we embrace the world, our viewpoint. So
Gabby's saying no fear of that in Australia. Well, especially where you are, Gabby. Perth has Western Australia has a lovely temperature for people who enjoy warmth.
Yeah.
And I have
like
to say,
hot warmth.
I like what Belinda's saying. Through the gate of faith, let's go. Yay!
It's funny because in the human design, that gate 55, which I don't know if you can see this here, but you see gate, I better make sure I'm in the right place. Gate 55 sits right here on the emotional center, right?
Yeah.
So the emotional center and faith go hand in hand. And the gate that is also called the gate of spiritual abundance or of abundance through spirit. And notice that it's sitting here on the emotional center. It's not sitting here on the work center. So it's not an equivalent statement to say that work equals prosperity. That's a wholly made up paradigm that has nothing to do with the truth That's something we need to look at, because right here it tells us that how we feel is how we prosper. So you could be at work
Yes.
all day and you love what you do and you're prospering, but you can also, there's my new kitty, you can also be at work all day hating what you do and never feel like you're prospering, because it's a feeling, right? It goes back to feeling. And in a real way, that particular gate in the gene keys represents freedom.
Hmm?
So we have freedom and faith hand in hand. That's so interesting to me. And in fact, in the gene keys, if anybody out there is familiar with the gene keys, they're arranged in shadow and then gift and then siddhi, which would be the highest expression of the energy available in that particular gene key, which is equivalent to a gate in human design. And just different verbs, same meaning. And in the lowest of that gate is victimization. That's the shadow, where we all become victims of not being able to get where we want or what we want. And then in the gift, it's freedom. And in the siddhi, the highest expression is also freedom. It's the only gene key that has the shadow and the gift that are both freedom. And so the option is victimization or freedom,
Mm.
right? Be a victim or be free, right? Because if you're falling victim to, even your own thinking, or to thinking that you're being victimized by the government or by your family or by your employers or anything like that, you're playing the victim role and you are not free.
Mm.
So freedom comes when we release ourselves from being the victims.
What I think of there, Janet, is sometimes we can be in victim mode and not be aware of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big consciousness raising thing that's going on the planet. And over time, right, it has been like going on, but there's still more work to be done there, because so many people still give away their power and become victims
Mm.
to things that people say, do what people do, what it looks like is happening in the outside world, the balance in their checking accounts, all of that. They, we all, and I find myself doing it too. It's not like I've gotten over that. I still find myself going, darn it, if it wasn't for that particular rule, then I could have this. And then as soon as you do that, you're a victim, right? Until you go, oh, yeah, but wait, there must be a reason why this is here like this. And what am I gaining from this? Or how could I change the way I think about this, or how I take action, and make it so that I'm not in a victim consciousness anymore.
Sure.
It
Mm.
seems so logical, really, to do it that way, but somehow we've just given away our power over many centuries of time and allowed ourselves to be victims of circumstance, and that thinking it's beyond our control, when in reality, the free will and choice that you have is about how you think about what's happening in the moment,
Mm.
so in whatever circumstance.
Welcome, Shirley. Roger's lovely to have you with us. And it's, for me, it's a reminder of, how am I viewing a situation?
Mm,
And so often we can see something and think that it's a negative or a blocker, and yet it's there for a very good reason. And it's like,
mm.
well, thank you, thank you, thank you for stopping me from going down a path that wasn't in my best interest.
Right, right. Sometimes the things that are seemingly withheld from us are being withheld on our behalf for a reason that we can't even fathom. And that's
Mm,
again where faith comes in. I just have to have faith that this is happening for this reason. I can't see what that is, but I trust
mm,
that I'm moving in the right direction, and or that the right direction for me to move in will be shown. It's not easy because we're so used to giving away our power in all of this.
mm,
But all in all, if we look at 2021 just through the lens of astrology, it while I think there are some difficult bumps along the way, and people might be in uh, rejection of what they see changing on the planet, like they don't like the direction things are going. Overall, the whole thrust of evolution right now is taking us into a more brotherly, sisterly love kind of place where we're really looking at how do we take care of one another? How do we take care of the planet? How do we take care of the animals on the planet? All of that is such a big
Mm,
theme. And the plants and the atmosphere, the water, the rocks, I mean, you name it. It's how do we care for everything? And
mm,
that also comes from a place of deep respect for ourselves. And if you don't respect yourself, then how are you going to
mm,
respect, your neighbor or the women on the planet or whatever? So there's a lot of big themes playing out, and not everybody's on the same page. Not everybody's on the same page or at the same level. I mean, that on one hand makes the planet a beautiful place to be and incarnate, right? Because there's all these different challenges. But on the other
mm,
hand, it can be true then that we have some people that are not quite ready yet to take and make that move. And if they're the ones that come into positions of power on the planet in governments or in leadership positions, then it can dull the effect of our evolution, how quickly
mm,
we evolve. We're evolving no matter what, right? We're,
sure.
we're moving ahead no matter what. But how quickly do we do that, and and
Mm.
that might be how easy we embrace that idea of change. It's a big deal.
It is. Yes. On one hand, it's a big deal. On the other, it's like, well, how can we make life simple? I like Julie's attitude. She's done with letting herself, not letting herself feel the joy of life. Bring
Oh,
on the joy. And it's, to look at the little things that we can often take for granted and sort of go, well, hey, celebrate the little things. And
exactly. Did you know that joy as an emotion, as a feeling, is not located in our human design in the solar plexus where all the other emotions are? It's not there. Where it is in the root center, because it's a fundamental basic of who we are as human beings to resonate with joy. That it tells us that joy is always a pulse that we are sending out or that we're receiving, that it's not something that is emotional. In other words, it's not something that comes from outside of you that makes you happy or joyful. It's coming from within you, and it's housed right here within you as a being and
mm,
just ready to be pulled up and expressed in any given moment. So it's not true then that it's the things outside of you that are going to bring you joy. We see
mm,
this all the time. People think that next big house is going to bring them joy or that next best job is going to bring them joy in their life. And then they're so disappointed when they realize it's just more work, it's more hassle, and I'm not any happier than I was
yeah,
last year when I bought that thing.
yep.
So that tells you that joy doesn't come from what you do out there or what happens to you out there. It is fundamentally, it is a format energy, we call it in human design. A format energy means we all carry it. It's right in here and it comes up. You can feel joy when something happens in the outer world that triggers that joy, or when you're thinking about something like your grandchildren or that awesome dinner that you made last night and you feel that joy that comes up, that's an inside job. It's
Yeah.
not something, it's not the food you ate or the face of your grandchild. It's that inner contentment that is being brought up and expressed, not because of something, in spite of whatever it is that's in your outer world. It's kind of an interesting upside down way of looking at things.
I smile when you talk about joy because one of the things I read about decluttering is if we're finding it difficult to, what to part with, what to hold on to. And so one of the suggestions was to hold the item or piece
Mm,
of clothing, whatever, hold it near our heart. And how do I feel about it? If it brings me joy, keep it. And if it doesn't, irrespective of what it is, let it go.
yeah. And what if you don't feel anything about it?
Mm.
Like this doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't not bring me joy. It's just neutral.
Right. Well, I
Maybe I
don't know
can
what
live
the
without it.
difference. Yeah. Do I
If it
put it back
doesn't,
in the cupboard or what?
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's, I find that fascinating actually, because there are certain things that I've been given or I've bought over time, and I think, no, it's done its job. No longer do I have the feeling for that, and
And you can let it go.
give somebody else the joy. Pass it on.
Yeah. I think sometimes we're hesitant to let go of things because we have some kind of an emotional attachment to it. I know what I do is I'm going to keep this because I might need it someday in the future, and then I'd have to go out and buy another one. So why do that? I'll just keep this one. And then I never use it. In fact, I still have clothes in my closet that I haven't worn in the last year. So why am I keeping them? I don't know. Like, because, well, with COVID, it's kind of hard to go do anything with them. So I don't know. I mean, that's an excuse if nothing else. But, think about the emotions and the grievances and the experiences that you've had in your life that you're also holding on to. And they didn't bring you joy, because often what we're holding on to, we do hold on to happy things. So don't get me wrong. But, it's the thing that that person said to you that stabbed you in the back that you remember first. Right. And then why are we holding on to that? Right? If we don't need that, let's let that go, because that's just cluttering up the emotional field. And if it's not, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that it wasn't hurtful when it happened, but do you have to keep letting it hurt you while you bring it up every time? Yeah. No, you don't have to do that, because that's one of those things that's getting in the way of joy, impeding joy in your life. Yeah. So,
Gabby has to disappear. Thank you for being with us, Gabby, and sharing. I'd like to thank everybody who has contributed to today's show in the chat room.
yeah, that's the one advantage we have doing it this way now, isn't it, Annette? That we can talk to people in real time and not hope that the chat gets to us from somewhere in the downstream.
Well, it does. Yes, we can see it on the Facebook page, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And yes, and Gabby's delighted in your wisdom, Janet.
I love it. Gabby, thank you so much. Gratitude to you as well for being here and saying such a thing. We love that. Now, before, we don't have much time left, but is somebody there that wants us to take a look at their chart or have a question about astrology or human design?
People have been very supportive today and contributing to the discussion rather than asking for readings. So
yeah.
So we can look ahead, can't we? With what's the word? Excited anticipation, because really a lot of what is likely to happen in 2021 depends on our attitude. Oh,
very much so. Very much so. I just had a thought while you were, my mind went wandering. I have this book that I love, Dane Rudyard, An Astrological Mandala. It was sort of along the lines of the Sabian symbols, where every degree of the zodiac is assigned a message or like a learning thing. And I never looked at 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is where all the fun started on December 21st, to see what that message might have been. So let's do that now and just be surprised at how awesome that might be. So the message, let's see, I have to go to Aquarius 1, an old Adobe mission in California. And the keynote of that is the power inherent in all great human works to endure far beyond the workers' lifespans. So the works and spirits of the Spanish priests who directed the building of the California missions have had a lasting influence on the development of this land. These remain as a monument to the men who were able to make their mark upon this alien environment. While the zodiacal sign Capricorn begins with a symbol of socio-political power, Aquarius at its start presents a more spiritualized and idealistic or creative picture of the social forces at work. Moreover, it stresses the enduring character of human achievements ensouled by a great vision. That's another word I think we can ascribe to 2021, vision,
Vision,
right?
definitely.
In astrology, Aquarius in the natural zodiac wheel, Aquarius rules the 11th house of vision, right? Dreams and ambitions and goals that are, the big picture. So I love that. Um, At least within the frame of reference of our Western civilization, the symbol speaks of the projection of a noble ideal into concrete forms of beauty and significance, thus, of the radiation of a civilizing power into an institution, offering to primitive men the opportunity to reach a higher, more organized, and productive level of activity. This is the first stage in the 61st five-fold sequence. It speaks to the use of the concretization of an ideal. I love it. This also
Mm,
implies the immortalization of an individual within a great collective and cultural enterprise. Vision, ideals, living the bigger picture, right? It's amazing. That was fun.
wow. Thank
I
you, Janet. Now,
yeah.
Helen was saying, I am having all the visions. My challenge is going to be focus.
Ah, great one. That's really good because what happens often with the gate 41 in human design, which is where the sun was, the imagination gate, is that gets caught up in fantasy, right? It gets caught up here in our minds. And the next step, of course, then is the bringing it into reality. So,
Mm,
how do we do that? Because a lot of us are dreamers and we just keep the dream alive, but we never see the results, whether it's a fear that it's never going to happen the way that I hoped it would happen, or whether we're afraid that we won't be accepted for whatever that dream or vision is. It's hard to say. There's like multiple reasons why that can happen. But the important thing is to take steps on the imagination or on the dream. One
mm.
little step leads to another little step that leads to another little step. And before you know it, you've achieved the dream, whatever it might be.
Now, isn't that the truth? It's the
Mhm.
little steps. It's being gentle with ourselves and not expecting to climb the mountain in one day or 1 hour, but to
Yeah.
see the little improvements or steps towards a goal that we make and celebrating those.
Yeah. It's like the first step is the hardest one. And once you make that
Mm,
step, then the rest just seem to be giving you sort of their approval to go ahead, right? The go sign or the charge forward happens after you take that first step. It's that first
mm.
step that's the hardest one though. But take it.
Well,
Take the first step.
yes, yes. Well, we've taken the first step. We've presented our first show for 2021. It'll be interesting, Janet,
Yes.
to at the end of February to look and see how far, how many little steps we've made, and personally, and on a global scale. I wonder what
Yeah.
will be taking place in a month's time.
Well, that's a big question because right now we have all of those planets all lined up in Aquarius, but they're going to go on, and in April we're going to have a stellium, which is just a congregation of planets all in Taurus. So that's all going to be around Uranus energy. So there's a big awakening coming or a big something, in the offing here as we get into the spring. And then as we get into late spring, early summer, we hit the eclipse season. And that often changes up the game as well. So I almost feel like there's just like good news on the horizon. It just
Mm.
might be happening and not the way that we thought it would happen, perhaps. I don't know what that means literally, but it doesn't matter because you know what? We don't know. I guess the important thing for each of us is to keep our minds focused on what we do desire, what we do
Yes.
want to see, and not the disparaging things that are happening that we see as well. We don't have to focus on those things. We can focus on what's positive, what's light, what's beautiful, what's helpful, what's wonderful. Keep our focus there on what could be, right? What are the possibilities, not on the more negative aspects that are out there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted to be back. Janet, thank you for
You're
sharing this
welcome.
time
You're
with
most
me.
welcome.
Thank you
Thank
to all of those people who chatted away and shared in the show. And thank you for watching whenever you choose to watch this. And I look forward to being back with Janet towards the end of February. Next week, I'm here again at this time, and Maggie Shannon will be my guest. And
Yay.
for those of you who love Angel Heart Radio, Anaya and Carol Ann are going to be coming up later this morning, in about an hour and a half's time. So whatever you're doing today, whatever the time is for you, may you be doing it with joy. Thank
Indeed.
you for joining us.
Thank
Bye
you, Annette. Thank you,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.